Hey everyone, welcome to my amateur, semi-pro, but really it's all just relative, natural dye kitchen. I just moved and I have to start over on setting up my natural dye studio in a rental apartment basement. And I'm setting it up down here in my basement so that I can plant dye all of my handmade linen clothes and fabrics that I sell on my website. And if we're just meeting, hi, I'm Leah and I have a handmade clothing business called Charlie Darwin Textiles. This little urban palace right here is where I make and sell 100% linen clothing that's all made to your custom measurements and dyed with pigments from plants. And this specifically is where all the dyeing happens. The sewing happens upstairs, and I just put out a tour of that space last week. It's a lot more well decorated, peaceful, calm, naturally lit than this space is down here. So go ahead and check out where I sew. But for today, we're talking rental apartment basement. So I actually had a pretty decent setup in my old apartment, but now I'm having to reconfigure with some new limitations, and I'm also growing and sort of updating some of my supplies along the way. So hold on tight, my friends, because today I'm taking you on a journey to get the Charlie Darwin Natural Dye Studio set up. Now, if you're here and you don't do what I do, you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, you just like hanging with me, and you're a total newbie to natural dyes, let me just give you the short version really quick. Super simply, natural dyeing is just coloring fabric with pigments from plants. And I think you'd be really surprised at how many plants actually will color fabric. Now, there's some plants that will give really long-lasting color, and then there's other plants that kind of provide more of a temporary stain, and they'll probably wash out or fade super quickly if the fabric isn't prepared in a certain way. Now, both kinds are super fun to play with and experiment with, but for my clothing line, I stick with the dyes that give good long-lasting color, like black tea, indigo, kutch, and chestnut. The thing about natural dyes is that they can only be used on natural fibers, so that's stuff like linen, cotton, hemp, wool, silk, and they won't take to synthetic fabrics like polyester and nylons. Now, most of the clothes in the world, I'm talking like 98% of them, are colored with synthetic dyes. Some of the reasons for this are that synthetic dyes are the only thing that can color synthetic fabrics, which are so cheap to make, and unfortunately, the big boom in fast fashion that's clogging landfills and waterways and blah blah blah. Synthetic dyes are often cheaper and also can provide more consistent color from batch to batch. But there's people like me and lots of other natural dyers, artisans out there, people who dye yarn and soaps and threads and whatever else you can dye that really love using natural dyes. And I typically call them plant-based dyes. Caveat, side rant, I think natural is a kind of funny word because we're all natural. Humans are natural. Everything we make is natural. Everything on earth is natural. There is no... I feel like people use it to exclude humans and things that humans create from the natural world, which is like this utopic place. But humans are animals and we're natural, and all of the chemicals that are found on Earth, everything on Earth, we're really all just floating on this giant rock in time and space. So I don't think humans are something special, different, or tainted, or darkness, or otherworldly from what's on Earth. Anyway, that's my side tangent. I'll call it natural dyes for purposes of this video, but I prefer usually to use the term plant-based dyes. Even though it gets super confusing because not all natural dyes and natural fibers come from plants, they actually can come from bugs like silkworms or cochineal bugs. I don't know what they're called. What was I talking about? I choose to use natural dyes because my eyeballs are really attracted to the rich earth tones that you can get with natural dyes. So I've experimented around and played with different synthetic dyes, and you just can't get an earth tone like using a plant-based dye. And I also just really love knowing what exact ingredients are in my clothing, and with plant-based dyes that's super easy. So when I'm dyeing something with black tea and iron, basically the only things that are going onto that fabric are black tea and iron sulfate and water from the city of Philadelphia. All right, before we embark on this chaotic facelift, I'll tell you about the key elements of what I need in my natural dye studio. The key elements to any natural dye studio are plant-based fabric, dyes, and any mordants you might need to prepare the fabric for dyeing, then a container to combine these along with water, a heat source to help set the dyes, and then some way to thoroughly rinse and dry your fabric at the end of the process. Now we have to address what's actually realistic in a rental apartment basement. I mean, of course, there's this ideal natural dye studio, this like imaginary place where I have all the supplies I want, like a big natural dye garden out back, a space for different pots, and a different washing sink for each dye color, new floors, beautiful natural lighting flowing in, and like a PhD level expertise in the science of natural dyes. And, you know, maybe I have like a videographer who follows me around getting just beautiful shots of my work and just shows my Pinterest-worthy dye setup and art studio. But instead, we're working with this. The current status of the basement is very bad. It is jam-packed full of stuff. Just stuff everywhere. I have like the starting glimpse of what I want it to be, sort of, kind of. Like I at least put this nice, beautiful shower curtain up. The reason that's there is because behind it is actually the fuse box for the entire apartment is located like 1 foot above the dye sink. So needed to cover that up. And in general, the walls were a little bit gross. So I felt just cleaner about it. Don't love the plastic waste, but I think that in this scenario, it was kind of necessary. And for some reason, landlords have kept like every extra appliance, it seems like, in the basement. So this washer doesn't even work, but they are going to take it away soon. And our dryer just broke. So they're also going to be replacing that soon, which will be awesome. So that'll get out of the way. It's really hard right now. I don't have a great way to empty my dye pot because there's no drain in the floor. My old apartment did have a drain in the floor, so I was able to run the hose out of the valve on my giant dye pot. I mean, this is super heavy when it's full. Like, it is a lot of water. And so I would connect the hose right there and then just drain it down onto the floor. But now it has to be able to run upwards into the sink. Doesn't make sense with gravity. So right now I'm using the syringe from my boyfriend's beer making kit to get all of the liquid out of the pot to be able to empty it when I'm done with dyeing. Right now it looks kind of medical, but it goes into the sink, and this sink, oh my God, let me tell you, the sink, I know it, like, this doesn't look good. You're like looking at this and you're like, wow, that looks gross. The sink before this, like when we moved in, was absolutely disgusting. It was like caked with crud, like chunky thickness. And so this is actually the result of just me doing some dyeing. I scrubbed the whole thing, bleached it a bunch, and like really took a layer off of this sink. And now I've dyed indigo and chestnut in it a few times, and so it's left some clear dye marks on it, but it is at least clean, which is a huge relief to have a clean spot because I'm actually like rinsing and washing the clothes in this sink. I have my hose hooked up to here. That's how I get my water out of the sink and into my dye buckets and pots. And right now what I need to do with the hose is I need to be able to kind of keep it from falling down onto the ground. I don't like love the ground here, so have some kind of system where I can plug the hose into like a PVC pipe or something so that I don't lose this tail end of it after I'm done using it. Right now I'm kind of like winding it around and tucking it, and it doesn't work super well. There's all sorts of just wiring up here that we're dealing with. I'm just kind of like happy I'm short, and I'm trying to just not look that high. I just keep my line of vision to about here and try not to look up too often because it is just stressful. So I need to organize my pots and all these cords and get my indigo vat set up somewhere. I need to get rid of all of this miscellaneous stuff that just doesn't belong in here. This was like left in the basement by the landlord, and I'm sorry, but it's disgusting, and there was like a lot of bad smells. So that's a trash box. And I just got jars. I've got all my towels to get set up in a good spot, and my dye powders. We've already had a dye explosion over here. It's a mess. It's a mess. I'm definitely excited to get this place looking better. I'd say the biggest hard hurdle to jump over when you're renting is that it feels impermanent, right? So like anything you do to improve the space, it's like, well, I'm not going to live here that long, and like, I don't even own this, and you can't make that many changes anyway because you don't own it. Kind of just like towing that line between what's worth it and what's not, and what's going to make your day-to-day comfortable in the time that you're going to be here. So hopefully I can get this into shape this week. It looks like I cook meth or murder people down here, but that would honestly probably be easier than what I'm doing. No, that's not true. Cut that. Anyway, my fun focus for this week is to get this dye area set up and to be able to get my plant-based dyes like really in a spot that I want them to be. And so it's all gonna happen in this space right here, guys. This is where the magic happens. Obviously, I need to get it cleaned up first, so that's the first step. And yeah, wish me luck. here's the consensus. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was this dye spot. It is looking better. It's 100% looking better. I really got a lot of things in place, I think, to start just like getting moving and getting in the groove down here. It still gets messy pretty quickly, so of course I wish the space was better. Everyone always does, but it's overall feeling way cleaner and more organized, and maybe a little prettier. This is very vulnerable. I hope you all know this is very vulnerable for me to be showing you what it looks like down here. My sister was visiting last week and she told me, she's like, yeah, I feel like you're really leaning into radical transparency. And I was like, yeah, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing, but it is really vulnerable to show what this space looks like. I've talked about this in a previous video that you can check out, but it's just scary. I don't often feel imposter syndrome, but I think with my space, especially because I wish for myself, regardless of my career, I wish that I was living in the woods somewhere, like in a cozy, warm cabin with a lot of flowers and trees planted around me. But circumstances have brought me to this nice apartment. I'm very grateful for the apartment and for the living space, and to have a living space and to have a basement to put all my dye stuff in, and I'm growing into it. But of course I wish that I was in some majestic cabin, like in a forest somewhere, and I wish I could be hanging all my fabrics out to dry on this idyllic warm summer breeze day in my woodsy cabin, but this is where it's made. And sometimes that's fun to know too, and it's fun to know the duality of part of the reason I make earthy clothes with plant-based dyes and fabrics is because I wish I was outdoors more, and I wish I was in those beautiful earthy settings, and because I'm not, and I can't always be, I at least get to wear it. I get to wear it on my body anywhere that I go and sort of create my own little micro ecosystem of colors and textures and fabrics that do make me feel like I'm a little bit closer to being in the outdoor earthy beauty that I love so much and brings me so much peace and joy. So I hope when you watch this video, it's a good reminder that things don't have to be so obvious, that to be a plant-based textile designer and seamstress and have a really earthy brand, it's okay to be setting up all of your studio space in a rental apartment basement in Philadelphia, on a dirty street with lots of car traffic outside, because that's just where I'm at right now, and beautiful things can happen anywhere. It's about just creating your own fantasy sometimes, and I'm happy doing that. Even if it feels delusional or inauthentic sometimes, it actually feels super authentic to me. It's being able to bring myself and the beauty I want to see in the world into the space that I can't find it in naturally. And sure, someday I'm going to keep working towards my dreams and goals of having some big elaborate dye studio that is right inside of a nice snuggle warm cabin with the breeze blowing the fabric dry and a beautiful dye garden out back. But for now, I'm sitting here in my pot, happy talking to you, and I'm really looking forward to all the plant dyeing experiments that are to come and take shape in this space. If you're into wearing true earth tones and really love linen fabric, I've got tons of fun and comfortable garments in the Charlie Darwin Textiles online shop, all handmade in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to your custom measurements. And I'd love to make you something special. I've got 2" by 2" fabric samples that I'm happy to send you via snail mail for free. Just email me and make a request. Be sure to include your mailing address. At the time of filming this video, I have a medium indigo, as well as a dark chestnut gray, a medium black tea gray, a black tea brown, and a Kutch light pink, as well as undyed natural white linen fabric. All 100% linen fabric in a medium weight that has been pre-softened, so it's so cozy and lovely to wear. If you're a maker, you can try out my plant-dyed fabrics, which I sell by the yard, as well as I sell little scrap bundles of the fabric that I have left over from my handmade clothing line. Of course, they pair super well with my sewing patterns. I have 3 out as of the making of this video, all of which are super optimized for working with linen. And if you want to dabble in plant dyeing yourself, you can head over to a blog post on my website where I show how to naturally dye fabric with black tea. It's super fun and simple. Alright, it's been real. If you want to see more from me, subscribe to my channel and see what I'm cooking up every week. I also want to invite you to my email newsletter where I share even more behind the scenes little thoughts and updates on new products. So, see you guys there. Bye!